is what flows in this fam's DNA. Dope is what flows in this fam's DNA.
What's good, everybody, and welcome to Dope Interviews, brought to you by the mighty 19 Media Group. I'm your host, Warren Shaw. I know it's been a few weeks. Hopefully you've missed us, but we're back in the virtual building. And I'm going back down my road here, friends and family, because my friends are flat out dope. There's no two ways about it. And in the virtual building with us today is one of my good friends who I've known for, I even know how many years now, Jessyka Castillo. She is an entrepreneur, marketing expert, fashion model, and just all around dope person. Doesn't even encapsulate everything that she does. Jess, what's good, fam? Welcome to Dope Interviews.
It is so beautiful to see you. Like, I mean, it's such a full circle moment because context, like we've known each other since I was in college. And I remember when I was working in my PR job in New York, we had that gig for Nike basketball or something with Hennessy Black. And we were, and even then, so you've been doing this for a long, good minute. And it's nice to see how it's evolved. I'm very proud of you.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you to say. And, you know, a very kind way of saying that I'm old as hell, but appreciate you, Jess. No worries. No worries. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
That makes me old. We can't do that.
Nah, you're anything but. And, you know, you've really been grinding and killing it. And that's when I say, you know, even we're talking off air. For me, it's awesome to be able to highlight my friends and family who are doing such amazing things. And, you know, you've been grinding and have such a diverse pathway to kind of even where you are now and still growing and still evolving. So I wanted to kind of touch in on this here a little bit too. Your career has been incredibly diverse. Engineering, I didn't even know you worked in that space for a little while. Marketing, obviously PR, what you just alluded to, and how we've connected and known you since, I think, again, at FIU. I think we were working for like an events board or something like that, I think, at the time.
I was on SOC. That was like my last 2 years. I was a peer advisor at the Biscayne Bay campus. Remember?
Shout out FIU,
shout out FIU. So yeah, it was nice to that was such a good fun time, and it built the fundamentals to what I'm doing now.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. How did all of these goals, right? Everything that you've kind of stepped into, how did you choose each one of those paths to kind of, you know, become the person you are today? Because they're all very different. They don't seem to mix like, you know, cohesively, like if you're just like looking at it from the naked eye.
Yes. Okay. So I have always been a curious person. I think fundamentally, like that's kind of been one of my gifts. At first, it seems confusing because, you know, most people are very on track and this is what I'm going to do. And that's the only thing they do. I had this vision early on. I would watch TV and I was like, man, I can't figure out, like, I want to be like Beyonce. I want to be like so-and-so, right? But I knew that I didn't have the talent necessarily in terms of like a singer or a dancer. Like I didn't have those focus areas. So I started to think about what are the people behind the scenes doing that make these people, you know, who they are. And so publicity was one of the things. And so when I was at FIU, I was pursuing a communications degree at the time. And I just did not, once I knew I was locked in, I did not play about that. I interned everywhere. I was that girl who like took on all the projects. I didn't care if I was getting paid or not. I was just hustling. So I was very fortunate to get an alignment with like really sharp mentors and entrepreneurs. And one thing I took advantage of is my career counselor at school. Like I was one of those girls who knew my resources and I was like, okay, I need to make appointments with that person. My professors, like I absolutely utilized my tools. So I started out doing nightlife and entertainment with Headliner, who is now like taking over nightlife all over nationally beyond Miami. And then what was really cool is I got an one of my agency opportunities, which was a Latin American agency that introduced me to product branding and things like that, had an opportunity to do Fashion Week. And so I started out as an intern with IMG Fashion in the media department. And then after interning and doing it a couple seasons, when they would come to Miami, they invited me to New York. And then I got the job to be like their consultant for like national media wrangling. And it was amazing. So wow. I think opportunity, I was curious and I just went for it. Like I wasn't shy. I just kind of was like, PR, this is what I'm going to do. And then I'll never forget, I would like write these. The key was I would get magazines because I was like, how am I going to get a whole media list? How am I going to become a publicist? Like, this is back in the day before magazines folded, before the 2008 boom.
Right.
I remember opening publications and reading the masthead and the emails there. It was usually only advertisement. Here or there, you would get an editor. And I just created like a master list and I would email them each every day, like, hi, and I just started from the very, very bottom. And that's why I tell everybody all the time, like, make sure you don't try to skip any steps because these are the fundamentals that will then, help you when you're building your business or whatever to know the grassroots steps to actually like build up. So that's what PR started like.
No, it's a vibe, right? And I think in some ways, even what you're saying is like before there were DMs to slide into, you know what I mean? You were making, your own list from hard copy magazines and trying to figure out. And, hey, I can relate to that, even understanding in my own space. Hey, when I was trying to get into journalism, same thing. Who do you reach out to? And you just kind of create this list. And there's a lot of no's. There's a lot of no's, but you got to keep pushing, at it as well too, right? How did you, in essence, so talk to me a little bit about the engineering path. Like when did that kind of come into play and, outside of the PR side?
Absolutely. So it actually plays into this. I was doing a satellite media tour so at this point now I'm in New York. I moved from Miami to really progress my career. I was working agency life, doing campaigns for Nike. I was doing Procter & Gamble, you name it, Fortune 100, 400, if anything, but like really big dog campaigns. And I was doing an SMT, a satellite media tour with Kamora Lee Simmons for Bounty, the paper towel. And so we're in studio, and when you're doing an SMT, it's like they're interviewing the person, but it's going out to Alaska, it's going out to San Fran, it's going out to like all different cities are getting the same interview. It's a press junket. So as we're sitting there, I'll never forget, I think it was either Hawaii or Alaska. We were doing a sweepstakes. Like, again, this is a mom blogger community. This is big. Like, if you know media, this is like people that are actively at home in Iowa, or I don't know, like really like reading the fine print of a campaign for a big company like Procter & Gamble. So I'll never forget, we had either Alaska and Hawaii left out of the campaign somehow. And the reporter said, well, what about us or something? But then like it went to a feud on Facebook.
What?
And this was new, right? Like social media was new in our lives. The instant that somebody can say something. When I saw like teams of people coming in, because again, this is like a big company coming in to like fix or stop, and like even what it did to Kamora, like she's like froze in the she did it with grace, but really like kind of like looking at us like, what are we doing right now? When I say all this, I just remembered in that instant, again, there goes that curiosity. I was like, what is happening? And why is this so disruptive? And so I realized at that moment that I needed to be a part of that wave. I realized that like, not only were magazines folding already and, all like the talk shows were leaving, like there was all these different factors coming into like PR is now changing, that technology, the ability for somebody to just write anything and it impacts so many. I said, okay, I need to get a front in front of this. It was actually a mistake. I ended up going to transition to crisis communications. I thought that I was going to be doing like FEMA, and like there was a lot of like natural disasters happening and impacting us in the time. And I said, again, I was like, I should use my skills for, greater good. And I've always been somebody who's like, how can I impact in servitude? So I was thinking about those factors. I went to GW. I'll skip how I got to DC. My family had moved there. I went to GW and I was like searching different programs, and the crisis communications happened to fall under, for whatever reason, the engineering school at GW. So here I am. I'm like, I got burnt out in New York, ended up in DC. I'm like, what am I going to do with my life? Olivia Pope shows up. This is again, like, it's all been through, yes, my life has changed through like exciting events in life and like pop culture, I guess. I'll never forget, I was at my parents' house in DC, and I'm looking at the TV, and it was the first episode of Scandal, and I was like, I don't know what she does, but I want to do this.
Oh my God, that's
So
amazing.
I know. So I'm in like grad school mode. I'm like, boom, boom, boom. You know, that our generation, my generation, it's like, oh, I don't have a job. I got to go to school. Right. So I was like, I'm in grad school mode. And then I just started to search crisis communications, went to different like university tours in DC. GW, they were like, okay, you're accepted, but how are you going to pay this tuition? So you need to get a job on campus. Got a job on campus, skipping. By now, I'm full on into my like degree. It was a certification, and they were like, hey, if you take one more year, you can get a master's. And I was like, okay, well, in what? And they were like, why don't you try an engineering class as an elective? Warren. Okay, listen to this. My dad's an engineer. My uncle's an engineer. All these men in my life have been engineers,
Right.
but no one told me that I could be an engineer.
Hmm.
You know, like I came from that era. I'm not even that old, but I came from that time where people were like, "Oh, you can communicate. You should do business administration. You should do communications, be in broadcast, like all this stuff." No one told me like, "Oh, why don't you?" And I also wasn't like interested in doing math and sciences in that capacity. So
Yeah, God bless.
I took this one class, systems engineering as an elective.
Yep.
And I was so good at it. And I'm actually surprised too. I was just so like the complexity of the problem solving and understanding that my brain could even think in this way was really fun. Now don't get it twisted. I definitely had tutors, and I was doing like my homework assignments when they were like, here's the long version of the homework and here's a short version. My homework assignments were 13 pages long. I did every step. Like I didn't know what I was doing. But yeah, that's like where the motivation came from, that moment where I saw the SMT be so disrupted. And then I just kind of like went into crisis and then engineering. And then here I am, a systems engineer.
That's, I mean, it's a path, right? And a lot of people, they don't always know the how or why, but again, when they trace it back, you're able to kind of like, figure that out. But you just kind of go where you need to go, and as whatever, if you believe in a higher power, whatever the case to be, you're like, hey, that's what's calling you. I think it's so interesting that you had so many family members as well too, and you touched on that. Never once did they, and not disparaging in any capacity, but it's like kind of maybe different mindset is like, all right, well, yeah, go into this or go into that, not figuring out this is a space that you could very much be in and do well at it, right? So I think kudos to you for continuing that level of curiosity, and and just taking a shot, truly betting on yourself in a way that has obviously paid off for you, right? I think that's so amazing. So I want to definitely congratulate you there. You are working, I said you were working in so many areas, like you mentioned the technology aspect. There's some STEM stuff that you're doing as well too. So talk to me a little bit about those things. How do you kind of blend that into kind of like who you are today as well too?
Yeah. So again, I think it's that opportunity knocking kind of person. So when I was at GW, I was doing licensing and trademarks for the university. That was my first job because, so it was because where do I put these marketing skills? And there was an opportunity, stipend for my books. I was just trying to figure it out, right? I didn't care. I was just like, yes. Yep. But where the opportunity came is it's DC, right? So a lot of things are public service or NGOs. And so personally, I didn't feel like I fit in. I was looking for more lifestyle branding, Coca-Cola, where is everybody at? I couldn't find that. But I did have a professor, again, using those resources, that hooked me up with Obama was in office at the time. And in DC, you always know what's going on in terms of politics. Like election year affects hiring in this way. It's like such a different world, right? It's very impacted by the Hill and all these decisions. That was new for a Florida girl like me, like Miami, God willing, we vote for the mayor. Like I'm now very active, but back then that wasn't like the premise of my thinking.
Right.
So So I happened to get again looking for lifestyle and connecting to the culture of DC. HHS, which is Human Health Services, Michelle Obama's Let's Move campaign. So I was a part of that. Um, and then so my portfolio, I was also very strategic. I took a class that was public private partnerships. So it was like, especially going alignment with FEMA when, they do those contracts with Walmart or anything like that. Like I started to really study that type of thing. So my resume started to look more public service. It started to shift. But I always knew, don't get rid of this private sector experience, like try to find a way. And so I found that sector, public private. And so currently right now, I actually work for the federal government in a very specialized department where it's technology transformation services. So I focus on the innovation of tools and building out solutions for the rest of the federal government to modernize itself to help public service. So, for example, like the HUD website, making sure that all the tools that are needed for public housing, federal health services, like all those, USA.gov, like I work on all that stuff from a higher level to make sure that the user experience is something that's progressing. That's what I do.
Jeez.
That's my day
I'm
job.
not intimidated at all. Like, no, seriously, you are a true shining light. Like you are a rock star, right? And to be able
Thank you so
to, again, you blended all of those things and all of those in this kind of way to make sure that you can be of service, right? And helping
much.
people and helping the community as well too. I mean, I think this is all so, stunning. And again, like I said, we haven't personally spoken a very, very long time where we've been able to catch up. So this is new information for me, for our listeners out here on Dope Interviews. Like he's even doper than I knew her to be. So I mean, we'll keep it pushing,
That's so
man.
sweet. Thank you so much. It's the other thing. One of the things that I'm probably the most excited about in success stories was like I've been really helpful in the diversity and equity within the technology space for the federal government. I can say like my impact there, but I did a lot of, even then, like I brought the public private partnerships into that because I'm Black Women Talk Tech lead in Miami. I don't know if you knew that. But just like bringing, when people are doing career searches, they don't think about the federal government. And I necessarily didn't either. I never thought that I would be working and serving in this capacity. And so just knowing that, I've been thinking through, hey, who's looking for a different approach? I got burnt out at this agency. In the government, they're like people first type of mentality, right? So I've been working with, Afro tech. I've been working with Latinas in tech, lesbians in tech, whatever it is, to expose this as an option for folks to make a transition in their careers. So DEI is definitely something like within the tech community that I am like a forefront for right now.
We're talking with Jessyka Castillo, and amazing entrepreneur, doing so many great things out here in the community and for the federal government now as well too, as we learn in our interviews. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Are you ready to step up your style without compromising the planet? Introducing the exciting partnership between Blueview Footwear and the 19 Media Group Network. Just visit bit.ly/Blueview19 to start your sustainable style journey. Our friends over at Blueview Footwear are renowned for introducing the world's first fully biodegradable sneaker. By using plant-based plastics, they are leading a revolution in cleaner materials and manufacturing. They have sleek and contemporary styles that cater to a wide range of tastes. Blueview Footwear believes that fashion and sustainability can coexist harmoniously. Explore their incredible collection of eco-friendly footwear by visiting bit.ly/Blueview19. If you let us know you made a purchase, we'll shout you out on our next show. Again, just visit bit.ly/Blueview19 today, and you'll see the ultimate collaboration of fashion, sustainability, and media excellence.
And we're back here with Jessyka Castillo. Make sure you're following her on IG at Jessyka the Model, or her latest business endeavor, which we'll get into in a little bit, at Fitness Financial Gains. Jessyka, I want to kind of harken back to something you said in the first segment of the show, right? So when you were well, I shouldn't say when you were, you're still very much involved in pretty much everything. But I think, on the press side and even going into, New York Fashion Week, right? So you got to see
Mm.
things from that lens, working as, PR. And now you transitioned to also being the talent. You are an actual model. Can you talk
Yeah.
to us a little bit about that path? What led you down that path specifically, and doing such great things like, New York Fashion Week and, Miami Swim, all of those things? Like, how'd you get into modeling too?
Okay, yeah. Put on your
All
seatbelts.
right, I'm
This one
buckling up.
is
Here we go.
so this has probably been one of the most exciting times of my life, if I'm being honest. I'm a seasoned 30s babe, meaning like season. And there's just things that I'm doing now that I never imagined. So if I'm being perfectly honest and transparent, all of these great accomplishments also felt like success. When I would reach it, I was like, okay, I'm not necessarily fulfilled,
Yeah.
or maybe, there was a little bit of that happening. And over time, I didn't realize it, but my mental health started to decline. And it could be also a lot of COVID impacted, but I think overall, I would look around and I'm like, I'm a successful person, right? I have my health, I have all these other things, but I still felt, mild depression, anxiety. I started to get social anxiety. There was a couple of factors that were just not feeling me in my skin. So I kind of got tired of that feeling, and many moments into it, I found myself at a birthday party, my birthday party, and I was so unhappy. And that's when I realized, I was like, okay, I need to really like take a minute to reflect. And so next morning, traditional thing, when I'm feeling that way, I start watching documentaries. And this part is actually really important because I never know who's watching and listening to the things I'm saying and who I could be speaking to. But there was two documentaries that changed my life. There was one where someone was interviewing Denzel Washington, and they asked him why he was pursuing theater at this point in his career. They're like, "You're such a successful person. Why theater?" And he said, "I never want the ghosts of my what ifs. Like, my biggest regret in life would be for the ghosts of my what ifs to be haunting me and like on my deathbed and saying like, why didn't you try me? Why didn't you do this?" He said, and that hit me really hard because I was like, there's something to that, right? Like, it kind of like gave me a light bulb of a moment. And then there was another documentary with Ben Crump where it's called Civil on Netflix.
Mm.
And the whole time I'm watching this, it's really watching me. Long story short, they asked him, they said, and then he just kind of did a monologue, and I'm paraphrasing it, and I can share it to you so you can put it in your notes. But basically, it said like, I've been given influence, and who am I not to use my influence for good? That's like the gist of what I understood it to be. So the two of those connected kind of empowered me, because the one thing I know for a fact that I've been able to do is build communities and build communities towards and connections for people in a greater good. So all those, that was like a purpose statement that was almost defined for me. So I literally got out of my bed. I like could vividly remember that moment of the aha. And so I went to this whiteboard in my apartment, and I just kind of started to, instead of focusing on goals, I was like, Jess, you've done the goals. Maybe this is the wrong approach. Let me just focus on my what ifs. So I started to go crazy on a board, and I was like, what if? And I started to think about the compliments that people have given me my whole life, things that have been natural, like, you make me feel this way, I like this, or you should write a book. And so I went ham. I was like, do not overthink this. And this is what I tell my clients, right? Like, whenever I get ready to do a branding campaign, don't overthink this. What are the first words? So I put modeling, I put author, and I put fitness and finance, because I was like determined to be in the best physical and financial shape of my life. And all these key words I just started putting down. So the next step was in my engineering systems brain, right? Because everything comes together, all parts of you, they really come together at some point. I was like, okay, now I need to build funnels. How do I actualize any of these things? Where are my networks? What exists? What doesn't? And so under each one, I would put bullets of people that I knew in my network. And by the time I was done, I still have the picture and I still have it. I like had mapped out a whole life, a whole like I just started thinking, modeling. Okay, Rachel, writing a book. I knew people who are publishers. Blah, blah, blah. Like I just started to think, and so the hardest part was action.
Yeah.
That's where your nerves set in because it's like now you've identified what could be a solution or what you're intimidated by or what your fears could be,
Sure.
and it's picking up the phone and asking for help. It's just there's a vulnerability there. So I'll like pause there, but that's where a lot of those things that I'm doing now came from a breakdown turned into a breakthrough for me personally.
Nah, I think that's, in fact, magnificent, in a lot of ways. And, I would just, even follow up in that aspect of, so when you decide now that you're going to go down this path and modeling is going to be one of those avenues to helping you, in essence, be more happy and just kind of even helping you with your mental health, so to speak, for paraphrasing standpoint, what's that called? Because like you said, you do know a lot of people, right? I can only imagine your phone is probably just like it's rolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling with people who can help. But then how do you balance that as well now too, in a way that where, what I mean? Like I said, you don't want to over leverage your relationships, so who's the call to kind of gets you into modeling? And then once you've kind of said, I'm going to go out here and take this leap.
So before I directly respond to that, you said something so key that was also a learning lesson in my journey. When I got burnt out from PR in New York, I had too much pride to call people and ask them for help.
Word.
So I self-sabotaged in that moment, right? So you said it, like, yeah, my phone has always been capable, but it's the me. It's what I now see as self-sabotage. I'll never forget when people were like, why didn't you call me up? I would have given you that gig, or I would have helped you out. You didn't have to leave New York. But and I think a lot of people struggle with this now, especially with social media and the social capital, just trying to keep up with whatever the it is for strangers, really. But that's not even the topic for today. But I think I had grown from that moment.
Right.
So I knew that I had made that mistake early on, and that and so I knew at that moment that this is not the time to relive that. I had grown from that. So the first call I'll never forget was to my dear friend Rachel Young, and she happens to be an executive producer for shows. She's still in we worked together when I was at AMG. She's still working in that community. I called her and I said, I have this radical idea, and I was skating through the conversation. I was like, so how I think, and I want to, and then I said, I'll never forget. I was like, I think I want to model. Like I mumbled the word, and I was like, I think I want to model. And she was like, why'd you say it like that? She called me out, and I was like, what? And she's like, why'd you say it like that? Say it again. And like, this is what I'm saying. You gotta have people in those moments that know you
Right.
too, and that see you, and that you it's important who you call in that moment too. So I didn't know that Rachel was gonna do it. I wasn't looking for help. I was just sharing an idea. And so when I put it out there, I told her, she said, okay, I don't know why you didn't do this a long time ago. Let's do it.
Right.
And it was nothing that she actually did, because again, my characteristic, you just crack that door, I'm going to bust it wide open, right? So like, I didn't need anyone to give me a handout. I needed the engine to run in that direction. And truthfully, all I was looking for was for an invitation. This story is actually really good. So I was looking for an invitation. I was like, okay, went back into my resourceful brain And I started looking up like swim week, who's on the schedule, started looking at the designers. I didn't care who it was. And she was like, oh, try Lila Nicole. She's a local Miami person. And, here are the ways in which you might know her. She does BET. She does all this other stuff. I was like, I'd never heard of this woman. Mind you, Warren, I did nightlife. She apparently used to do stuff with Mansion and all these things. So like at some point I would have met her.
Right.
Like this is back in the day. Never met this woman. Long story, all I wanted was an invitation to the show. And I was like, and that's another thing that I realized, that Black and brown women, a lot of us do this. Instead of saying I want to be in the show, I was just looking for, I was asking for like the bare minimum, even in my vision.
Wow.
And so I said, I wanted to go. So I find out that her dinner was being hosted at Bar One. I'm texting Rachel. I was like, hey, yeah. So I found out about her dinner. I'm going to go tonight. She was like, oh, why don't I just text her? Girl, I didn't know you know her like that. Like, this is what I'm telling you. Yeah, I might have the numbers, but people don't even know. They're not used to me asking for help. So they don't even know what helping Jessyka looks like.
Right.
For me, her giving me the name and me doing the research was enough. But once I told her, she was like, oh yeah, let me just text her. So apparently she texts Lila, and Lila was like, oh, I'm looking for a curve girl to wear my, the cover up in her closing or something like that. And she's like, send me, tell her to come to my casting. Again, I didn't even know she had a casting. So I'm sitting at Nick's thing. We're talking about like our goals, all kind of stuff. And then she's like, send me your pictures. I was like, I don't have pictures. She went on my Instagram, screenshotted a bunch of pictures, sent them to Lila. And she's like, okay, tell her to come to my casting. I'm now freaking out. I have to work. I take the day off. I go home. I do my own makeup. I'm on YouTube, like searching, how do you do a runway walk? Don't know what I'm doing. Put on music, and I just like walk back and forth. I try to figure out the right heels. I'm spending like 30 minutes finding the right swimsuit. I was completely overweight because at the time with my stress and depression, like I had just been eating my way through the life. So I was like, this is when I'm gonna try this. And so I don't know. I was like on a high, but what I can tell you is that I was just happy to be there. I was happy to experience this. I didn't care. You're talking to somebody who wanted to go to the dinner.
Wow.
Check this out. I get up there and I'm looking at all these girls. They're looking at me. I'm like, okay, what do I do? So while I'm standing there, I'm studying the runway. Like they basically walk once, walk back. I don't even know how many times you're supposed to do this. I don't have a comp card. I don't know anything. I get in the line. And the young lady goes, we haven't seen a lot of curvy girls, so you better kill it. And that's exactly what I did. Killed it. I mean, when I look at it now, I'm like, oh my God, I had no issues walking up and down. And that's what's been true about this fashion thing, is that I'm truly having a good time. And so when people give you a compliment, like you're really good at this, and that's how they feel, that's actually a part of you, because when I'm on stage, I have zero nerves, and I don't know where that comes from.
Again, floored by the level of success and, the way you continue to take chances and, but I think, what you said as well, too, just being available or being understanding where you made some mistakes, right? It hasn't always been easy or perfect or whatever, but recognizing that you're not going to let those mistakes hold you back from your potential future and how successful you can be. So being vulnerable enough to even ask for help or allude to maybe, and then finding out how many people you do know and how much help you can even be given, in that aspect, and not even given what you've earned by virtue of what the people and the work that you've done, even with them as well, too. Let's transition now to your latest venture right now and talk to us about Fitness Financial Gains. Like, where did that impetus kind of come from? It's burning up down here in South Florida.
So Fitness and Financial Gains is my baby. I do not have any children, but FNF is absolutely that. Going back to even the modeling, I had stopped. I just didn't have any energy in my lows, right? And so I always knew that fitness, and not even fitness, just movement, is the first step outside of your mental prison. So even like finances, I remember when I was, going through my lows, that's where you tap in. All of those like overspending, trying to figure out happiness through like all these things. So that's why when I did my whiteboard, I committed to myself that fitness and financial needed to be a part of that. Hence the name. So I got a trainer, and I said, this is 2 weeks before I started modeling. I got a trainer and I said, I need to change the 5 people. Like, you know how they say the 5 closest people to you is a reflection of who you are? I started to look at the people around me and I was like, is this what's influencing my depression and my like social anxiety? And absolutely, I can tell you, yes, the answer is yes. Not that people are bad people, but really that like that trajectory of growth is really within me. That is something that's my DNA. And so like if I'm around any stagnance, if I'm around that really does start to impact me. And I learned that through this moment. So I said, I'm going to get a trainer. I'm going to take away the cost. People always hit me up and they're like, oh, let's go to brunch. Let's go to lunch. Let's go to the club. Let's go here. So I said, we're going to take a trainer to Nikki Beach. We're going to earn our fun. And that's how I'm going to start deciding like who are the people, the tribe that I need to be growing with. So I got a trainer, didn't charge anybody anything. We did sandbag workouts behind Nikki Beach on the sand, 9 a.m. on a Saturday. I invited everyone in my phone. Like you say, I have a Rolodex. I invited everyone in my phone and 5 people showed up. Wow. Out of the 5 people, I only knew one person. So the other 4 were people that I had just met recently. Either I went out with them, like whatever. So that already tells you, like that goes to show you, like, again, what I was saying in terms of my tribe. And so the first week we had a great time. We did, brunch after. Great. Now the second week I posted it on social media and now 15 people showed up. And by then, it wasn't even called Fitness and Financial Gains. It was called Beach Bums because it was supposed to continue this way. So by then, I was like, okay, this was not a business plan, right? This was for Jessyka. So I said, all right, guys, by the 3rd week, I had gotten that call from Lila Nicole that I was going to walk in Swim Week. And so I walked Swim Week, and then Wilhelmina had a casting call somewhere in like Tampa or something. And so I had to drive out there, and I was like, I'm not going to skip. I'm not going to be able to keep this thing up. So I was about to cancel, and they were like, wait, but this means something to us. And I was like, wow, wait, I already had been forming community, right? And so that's where it all came from. I did the workout in the morning, and then I went to the Wilhelmina event, and it just kind of kept going from there. And now we have fitness, fashion, because I have models in my network. So we do a lot of programming around, kind of like fashion. Then we do philanthropy. We do finance. So I do things with the chambers of commerce, like a social networking for social economics. A lot of like CEO calls, making sure that people have some business advice, qualified things, trainings. We're going to do an AI session now for business, a couple of things like that. What else do we do? We do friends, which is just another F to bring. Once we work out, people always want to hang out. Like, oh, I found a community of people that I like. What do we do? So we take it outside of the gym and we do, happy hours at Red Rooster. We did something at Phuket. And then I'm launching field trips this season, which is people that are new to the South Florida community. They're not aware of like the Everglades or nighttime ATVs or, just showing them the beautiful things of Vizcaya. So we're going to go as a group and calling it field trips to do like kind of excursion situations, but with like-minded people. We've taken it on the road. So I've done DC, LA so far. We're looking to expand to New York and Atlanta next. And then the most exciting to me has been the launch of my athleisure. So we now have athleisure apparel.
Word.
Yes. So I'm so thankful for the community because I'm on my I think this is my 4th capsule and I've sold out of every capsule that I've had. So it is It is thriving. And again, like the athleisure came from me being, a thicker girl. I was working out at the gym. I'm sick of my pants being all tight. I gotta, I can't do a squat, and so I was like, I need to solve this problem. So everything I've done has been to solve my own scenario. And I think, like, if anyone else is thinking through, like, where do I start? It's really, you are the consumer. You are the thing that needs to solve its own problem. And yeah, just don't be afraid. That's actually another point. I was sitting on a box of athleisure for at least a month and a half, 2 months in my apartment. And I'm like, I got to do a product shoot. I need a website. I need all these things. Like, my packaging isn't right. I had all these excuses for not to hit go. And then one day I realized, I was like, you're literally sitting on money, Jess. So I had a trainer. I said, we're going to work out with this top, and you're going to film it for me. And I worked out with it, and I filmed it, and I put it up on my stories, and the thing sold out in 2 weeks.
God dang.
So it's just to let you know, like, I'm no different than anyone else. My biggest thing is, I tell people all the time, just start.
Yeah.
Just start. Like, don't expect it to be perfect. Don't wait for it to be perfect. People will pump information online to tell you need a website, you need a branding manager. I'm a micro influencer. I get brand deals in my DMs. That's the only reason I'm on social media. If I wasn't, I would not do this. Like, just letting you know that you don't need all these mega vehicles. When you're starting out, just use the fundamentals of the tools that you have access to, and get started. And that's really how FNF and all the other parts of Jessyka have kind of lived on.
Listen, you are a pro's pro, right? So I think I don't even need to ask any follow-up questions, because I think, you've been able to give the nuggets in, how you done it, give them some great advice for anybody who might be watching and listening to understand, it's not, again, you don't always need everything that people tell you need to do. You just need to kind of have, a dollar and a dream, if you will. Just some level of even integrity and impetus within yourself to kind of get things done. I'm so proud of you. And I mean that sincerely. It's been so great to be able to catch up with you here today, and for you to illuminate me and illuminate our friends and listeners here on Dope Interviews of all the things that you're doing, all the projects that are on the way, and that you just come from a place of actually wanting to help, and you do it from a sense of confidence, but not overconfidence or cockiness, but also express some of the doubt and some of the things that you've had to go through as well to get to where you are. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us here today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for thinking of me. It was so nice to see when you emailed me. And if there's ever anything, FNF is open to the community. If there's any way that we can elevate anybody that's your listener,
Sure.
I'm happy to do so. And more to come.
For sure. That is all the time we have for today. Again, she is Jessyka Castillo. Make sure you follow her at Jessyka the Model or at Fitness Financial Gains. I am Warren Shaw, as always, your host for Dope Interviews. You can follow me at Shaw Sports MBA or Dope_interviews if you're on X now, not Twitter. You know what it is, y'all. It's been another Dope Interviews. She is Jessyka. I am Warren, and we're out.
Bye.
Together we stand, divided we never. The vision is one, striving for the better. Working as a team, working toward a dream. It's not even work when the team is the dream. On a united front, we got our own back. A band of brothers to counteract any attack. One heart in fact, forget what the blood say. Dope is what flows in this fam's DNA. So let's do it for the love, give to the max. Listen to opinion, but react to facts. And remember that together with a but separate, just pieces of it. Dope is what flows in this fam's DNA. Dope is what flows in this fam's DNA.
Family represent like a tree with names on it. We're free, no chains on it. Relieved, the pain's gone, I can see. We come together like questions on the quiz. Mojo Flow and Viz, man, you know what it is. And if ignorance is bliss, you're gonna hate this lesson. Organized intellect like a tropical depression. My symbol is the cross, a mic and ghost peppers. Cause I'm just a black sheep, growing up to be a shepherd. Moonlighting as a weapon to protect the children. Every brother is a father, dynasties we're building. Max, J, and K, Baby, and Isaiah, next level of the family foundation, understand me?